Welcome to Apex Formula, where strategy meets action.
Most people assume their job is safe because it has existed for decades. They believe stability comes from history, not from adaptability. But the next decade will challenge that assumption more aggressively than any period in modern history. Technology isn't just automating tasks, it's reshaping entire workflows, reorganizing industries, and rewriting the definition of value. Many jobs won't disappear suddenly. They will erode quietly. They will become less relevant, less profitable, and less central to how work gets done. By the time most people notice the shift, it will already be too late to pivot. You've seen the early signals. Tasks that used to require assistance now happen automatically. Work that required specialized knowledge can now be done by AI in seconds. Research, planning, summarizing, analyzing, and coordinating, once core responsibilities, are becoming automated layers beneath everyday tools. And while the average worker feels safe because their job title hasn't changed yet, the structure beneath that title already has. The question isn't which jobs will disappear. The question is, which jobs are built on responsibilities that technology can perform faster, cheaper, and more accurately. The biggest misunderstanding about disappearing jobs is assuming automation targets specific professions. It doesn't. Automation targets patterns, repetition, predictability, coordination, analysis, and information processing. Jobs vanish when their core tasks become obsolete, not when the job title disappears. That's why people overlook early warning signs. They evaluate the stability of their job by looking at the label, instead of analyzing the tasks that make up the role. The real threat isn't that a job disappears overnight. The real threat is that the parts that create value slowly shrink. The stakes couldn't be higher. People who fail to read the signs will find themselves losing income, relevance, and optionality. Companies that rely on outdated roles will fall behind competitors that adopt automation early. Entire industries will shift their hiring priorities toward roles that manage systems rather than perform tasks. And individuals who cling to old models will struggle to find their place in a world where technology handles much of the execution. The disappearance of jobs isn't just an economic shift. It's a psychological shock for anyone who built their identity on a skill the world no longer needs. This is the truth people miss. When a job disappears, the underlying tasks still exist. They are simply done by different systems. The value doesn't vanish. It relocates. It moves to people who design the systems, manage the systems, interpret the output, or handle the human elements technology cannot replicate. Work becomes more about direction, judgment, creativity, and emotional intelligence, and less about execution. The people who thrive won't be the ones who defend old tasks. They'll be the ones who follow where value goes. Value migration follows a consistent pattern. First, technology assists. Then, it accelerates. Finally, it absorbs. At each stage, human contribution shifts upward. What begins as support ends as replacement. And what survives is the layer that technology cannot fully replicate: context, accountability, and meaning. This is why jobs based purely on execution collapse first, while roles built around interpretation and responsibility expand. The mistake most people make is assuming that because they are still employed today, their value is still intact. In reality, value erosion often begins years before employment ends. As automation expands, the economic premium moves away from doing and toward deciding. Toward asking the right questions instead of producing the right outputs. Toward synthesizing information rather than generating it. Toward accountability instead of activity. This shift is uncomfortable because it demands visibility and ownership. You can no longer hide behind busy work. You can no longer rely on effort alone. The future rewards those who understand leverage, how to amplify outcomes through systems rather than effort. There is also a cultural dimension to this shift that most people ignore. Organizations increasingly reward clarity over compliance, initiative over obedience, and insight over volume. Roles that once existed to move information between silos lose relevance as systems communicate automatically. In their place emerge roles that translate complexity into decisions. This is where long-term value concentrates, at the intersection of technology, strategy, and human judgment. The 4 categories of jobs that won't exist in 10 years. 1. Jobs built on pure information processing. Roles like basic data entry, simple reporting, transcription, scheduling, admin coordination, and templated content creation are already being replaced by AI systems that handle these tasks flawlessly at scale. These jobs won't disappear. They'll become unnecessary. 2. Jobs based on predictable, repetitive decision-making. Loan underwriting, claims processing, basic customer service, standardized legal review, inventory optimization, and rule-based analysis can be automated with machine learning. If a decision can be made from patterns in data, algorithms will outperform humans. 3. Jobs that exist only because of friction. Middle-layer roles created by outdated systems, paperwork processors, manual compliance checkers, low-level brokers, travel agents, simple account managers will shrink as automation removes the inefficiencies that required them in the first place. 4. Jobs that require human presence but not human judgment. Warehouse pickers, basic drivers, security monitors, toll operators, assembly line workers, automation and robotics will gradually handle much of this labor as physical automation becomes cheaper and more scalable. Look at how digital banking reduced the need for tellers. Look at how online travel platforms replaced booking agents. Look at how e-commerce automation transformed warehouse staffing. Look at how autonomous systems are reshaping logistics. These shifts didn't eliminate the industries, they eliminated the tasks that no longer required human involvement. Consider marketing. 10 years ago, content production required full teams. Today, one person augmented by AI can produce the work of an entire department. Or consider software development. AI assistants can now generate code, fix bugs, and optimize structures, meaning junior roles will shrink while senior roles evolve into oversight and architecture. The pattern is always the same. Execution declines in value, and strategic oversight rises. Even creative industries aren't immune. Designers, editors, writers, and animators now rely on tools that automate 50 to 70% of their workload. Creativity remains valuable, but the shape of the creative job is transforming. Practical roadmap. How to protect your future value. You don't need to fear automation. You need to reposition around it. Shift from task skills to meta skills. Problem solving, system thinking, communication, creativity, judgment. These scale with technology instead of competing with it. Learn to work with AI daily. Your productivity will multiply, and your relevance will increase automatically. Move up the value chain. Instead of doing the work, learn to direct, design, review, or manage it. Develop a personal advantage technology cannot replicate. Nuance, empathy, leadership, insight, these become premium skills. Watch where value is migrating. Follow the tasks that are growing, not the tasks that are shrinking. Reinvent before the market forces you to. Waiting is the most expensive career decision you can make. Once you understand how jobs disappear, panic fades, and clarity appears. You stop fearing automation and start using it as leverage. You stop anchoring your identity to a single role and start building a flexible skill set. You stop assuming stability and start designing adaptability. The future doesn't punish people for change, it punishes people for resisting it. And when you align yourself with where value is moving, the next decade becomes a landscape of opportunity instead of uncertainty. This realization restores control. You no longer feel trapped by your current position or threatened by every technological headline. Instead, you gain a framework for interpretation. You see disruption not as a personal failure, but as a structural shift. That perspective replaces fear with strategy. You begin to think in trajectories instead of job titles, in capabilities instead of credentials. The anxiety that comes from uncertainty gives way to confidence rooted in adaptability. Over time, this mindset compounds. Each new tool becomes an advantage instead of a threat. Each shift in the market becomes a signal instead of a shock. You stop asking whether your job will exist and start asking how your value will evolve. That question alone changes how you learn, how you work, and how you position yourself. What ultimately disappears is not work, but illusion. The illusion that stability comes from standing still. Once that illusion dissolves, the future stops feeling hostile. It becomes responsive, and those who move with it, rather than against it, discover that relevance is not something you protect. It is something you continuously create. If you're ready to understand not just which jobs will disappear, but how to future-proof your skills and build a career that thrives under technological acceleration, subscribe to Apex Formula. In the next episode, we'll explore the technologies you should bet on, and why the biggest opportunities will appear in places most people aren't looking.
Subscribe to Apex Formula for the next step in optimizing your life and unlock the mindset, systems, and strategies that turn potential into real, measurable progress. Stay focused, stay evolving, and we'll see you in the next video.